that was established in the state of Qatar in '66. That's why I ended up having a massive collection of architectural books and then started publishing my own. There was no West Bay, there was no Corniche. All of that was reclaimed. And I remember, did the research, made the submission, and then a few months later I get a phone call that congratulations.
So welcome to SheTalks. Here we are live at Al Hosh Art Gallery with my first guest here in Qatar, Mr. Ibrahim Jaidah. Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Assalam. Thank you. I'm delighted to be with you here.
Yeah, it's such an honor for you to, be my first guest in Qatar. And I think the podcast really is about connecting the world, not just locally, but people overseas to know what's really happening out here in Qatar and people like yourself and what you've contributed. So for those of you who don't know Ibrahim Jaidah, I want you to tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Ibrahim Jaidah. My hometown is Doha. Grew up in the old part of the town, Al Jasra, where Souq Waqif is. A lot of tourists know where that is. Went to boarding school in the UK as a child, and then eventually ended up in the States, studied my architectural degree, came back and practiced architecture. Now it's been more than 3 decades. Worked in the government for a few years, 2-3 years. Then I acquired the Arab Engineering Bureau, the first firm that was established in the state of Qatar in '66. There was about 6-7 people in the firm. Now we are averaging 600, working throughout the region. We did projects from Europe all the way to Asia, and having a wonderful time creating new buildings, in new different places.
We're going to come back to some of your amazing buildings in a minute, but just to, being British and being in the UK, some people in the UK still see the Middle East as Dubai, and Qatar, especially with the World Cup, has become very familiar to the world. So, just listening to you, telling me that you went to boarding school, tell me a little bit about your upbringing, because people think that in the Middle East, everything's so privileged, and, it's just interesting hearing from you. And your family, like for someone like yourself to go to boarding school in those days, I don't think it was very common, right?
It wasn't very common. There were a few families that sent their children. That was very early 70s. I went to boarding school in Heathfield in Sussex, small town. Have wonderful memories. I was going there every year. This is where we sort of were exposed to England, to the English way.
So who was the person in your family that encouraged education?
Oh, it's in the roots of the family. This goes on for generations. All my previous dad, grandfather, they were well traveled. There was not necessarily a sort of a college degree, but they spoke many languages because they traveled the sea, whether it's in India or Persia or Zanzibar. They were trading is in the blood. So being, I guess, a trading family, they believed a lot in education. And my older brothers have encouraged that. So here we go. We went to the boarding school every year. It was very exciting, learning from riding horses to canoeing, to climbing, to all sorts of things. And of course, learning the language, which was very easy for me to learn. And that helped me quite a bit later on in my life and my career as I continued.
So the foundation, I think the foundation was very important because you had education, in your family and in your roots. I would say that in some ways you had a good kickstart into life.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And my mom my mom is from Bahrain and came from very well-educated family. So I was really privileged as a young child growing up in Al Jasra, listening to classical music and all the books that my mom was reading. Actually, she still reminds me that I was reading the books before I started reading. I would open the pages and put my fingers on the letters. So I loved books, and that's why I ended up having a massive collection of architectural books and then started publishing my own books.
Yeah, but I think it's quite important, especially for young Qataris as well. The new upcoming generations to understand the importance of education. And I think with schools and education developing here, I think in Qatar, you definitely have some amazing opportunities to have that starting foundation.
Indeed, I mean, I think with no doubt, Qatar has become sort of the capital of education in our region, because the colleges per capita, I think, is unmatched. And you got the best universities of America and of the region are all here. So the younger generation are very, very much privileged, actually.
Yeah. So tell me, I mean, I came to Qatar first in 2012 and it's now 2025. I've seen huge development. So what was Qatar like for when you were growing up?
Oh, it was nice population. I would say when I was a child, it was less than 100,000 for sure. Simple, but what I like about the growth of our cities, and it was very nice, gradual, step-by-step growth, very healthy way of growing. But we've seen the transition. I've seen the mud houses, the courtyard houses, and then I lived through the transition. As I was growing as a child, 7, 8 years, we've seen the new buildings getting built, new streets. There was no West Bay, there was no Corniche. All of that was reclaimed. And I remember that as a child. Having seen that transition now in my career gives me a lot of appreciation of our early modern architecture.
Yeah.
I've seen the old, I've seen the transition, and I've seen the positive and negative things about that growth in terms of urban planning, city planning. And fortunately, I have documented a lot of things that has been demolished. That's why I made sure that I put that in my last publication on our history of our early modern architecture, to where I document things that has vanished and things that are being preserved, fortunately.
So for those of you listening to SheTalks, Ibrahim Jaidah is a very, very humble, but some of the most amazing architecture here in Doha, including the new Rosewood Hotel, is something that he has, he has created along with many others. And one of the most amazing pieces that I love of his was at the World Cup, was one of the stadiums. Do you want to tell me a little bit about the stadium and the design?
The stadium, we were all thrilled. I'll never forget the minute that they have announced, open the envelope and Qatar is going to host. I had tears. My kids and my wife were around me and we were all just jumping. My children were too young to realize how important that announcement is going to be for their future.
Yeah.
So then the years went by, we were very busy doing hotels, things that are related to the World Cup. And we were hearing the news, Zaha Hadid is doing the Al Janoub Stadium, Norman Foster is doing the Al Lusail Stadium. And there was an announcement after announcement, until I get a phone call to say, Ibrahim, you're going to be competing on our last stadium, which is Al Thamama Stadium. And it's going to be an open competition, open to a certain number of people, and we'll give you the opportunity to do so. And the brief was it has to relate to your culture, but in a contemporary way, and so on. And I started studying what I should be doing. There was a reference to the head cover, and I was saying, my God, since I was a child, I was wearing this gahfiya, our head cover, which we call gahfiya. And the head cover is very important to most of the countries in the world. I mean, there is one form or another of a head cover everywhere. So I thought it was very important. Did the research, made the submission, and then a few months later, I get a phone call that, congratulations, you've won. I almost fell on the ground. I made the excitement. It means so much to me because at that time, with all the challenges that our nation was facing to meet that deadline, all the different type of challenges, and for me to be part of the success of my country, it just meant so much to me.
And also it's about you giving something back.
Indeed.
It's your home, it's your country. And for those of you who've not seen it, it's an amazing piece of architecture. Like Ibrahim said, it's based on the hat that they wear underneath and the shape and the design is just like that. It's actually really amazing. So if you haven't seen it, do have a look. So that was one of Mr. Ibrahim's creations. Amazing.
One of my sort of favorites because of difference, the scale, the event. And I was called during the opening to receive His Highness. It was a local finals of the local teams. And I'll never forget, it was a great honor to receive him. And then the game started and everybody was shouting, the two opponents of the team was shouting. I was living in my own world. I was looking at the ceilings. I was looking at the people. I didn't even know what was the score because I was so thrilled.
That
to
is
see
it's part
what
of
I have designed now is
absolutely.
alive. I mean, I've designed shopping centers, hotels, all sorts of buildings. But a stadium, when it's full, I mean, it was a feeling that I didn't feel before.
No, but congratulations on that. And, we wish you a lot more success. But Ibrahim, tell me, sometimes, the creativity process, like you were told that you've got to, there's a design competition or an opportunity to design a stadium. As an artist and as an architect, the creativity process, how does that start for you? Do you think it's easy or hard? I'm quite fascinated in how that creativity in you starts.
I think it's a lot of it is something that you accumulate since you are a child. The more you travel, the more you see, this becomes memory and stick to your mind and how you sort of define anything. I think we are all a result of memories and travels and trips. That, in my opinion, builds your sort of database. Then the space. Where am I going to build? What am I going to build? That plays a role. And the function, of course, is very important. Then you start giving the solution. Throughout the years now, I developed a wonderful creative team. We sit, brainstorm, sketch, throw it away, sketch again, throw it away, until we get to an idea. The most important, and that's the role that I try to lead with my team, is the storytelling. How do you conceive that concept?
So it's about the journey.
About the journey and the story that you tell. Now, for example, we're designing things high in the mountains in Oman or in a wadi or near the sea in different location here or anywhere in the region. This space sometimes talk to you about what belongs there. And whatever you do should actually belong there. Different from designing city buildings, but when you get out in the suburbs, so every project has a story and has a journey, and it's a wonderful journeys.
So what would you say is one of your most favorite pieces of architecture?
It's a question that I always get asked, and I say all my projects are like my children in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every project is a journey with the owner, with the client, with the challenges that we go through.
Okay, let's put it this way then. What was the most challenging one?
I mean, the stadium was extremely challenging. I haven't done a stadium before. I'm not much of a football going to stadiums. I've been in my life a couple of times. So I had to put a great team of 17 different consultants to work with us as a team. And that was a wonderful exercise of collaboration. So where I control the theme, the story of the gahfiya, of the hat, but then you get a FIFA compliance specialist, architects that do the function of the back of the house, of changing rooms, how the whole thing is set. And the list goes on in the consultant. So that was quite a challenge. And we had a budget to work for and a deadline. And the deadline was extremely important. It has to finish so many years before the World Cup because Qatar had other events prior to the World Cup. So all of these were big challenges, but it was a beautiful journey, learned a lot from it. And every challenge that we go through makes us that much better.
So for young upcoming architects, where you graduated, you went to America, you went to boarding school, you've come back to Qatar. So how did it start, the journey? Was it easy? Like for our youngsters out there who might want to go into architecture or start, do you think it's always an easy step?
I don't know what's the definition of easy. I mean, to be able, School of Architecture is not easy in terms of man hours that you need to spend, but it's a beautiful journey of creativity. I think it's like any thing in the arts. You stay late to hand over your project and so on. But the whole thinking process, looking back at it, there is a sacrifice even in building my own career. Sometimes sleepless nights, you worry, you want to achieve, but hard for younger generation, I would say, hard work pays off. Sacrifice pays off. If you're honest to what you're doing, focused on what you want to achieve, it's doable. I had a dream where I wanted to go, what I wanted to be, and nothing could stop on my way to achieve. And alhamdulillah, now after all these years, I think I'm still learning, but I have, accomplished quite a bit in my lifetime.
So it's all about perseverance and passion.
Indeed.
Okay, so culture and faith, how do they play a role in Ibrahim Jaidah's life?
Culture, in my opinion, is quite important. But when we define it, you don't want culture to become a sort of an obstacle that you're stuck in certain era of the time. I'd like to use culture as a source of inspiration rather than put me in a box and I get stuck into a certain era of history or of a certain period. So, and that's what I always tell the young students. We have a very rich culture in our region, and it will be a shame not to be inspired by it. Whether you're talking about in any, whether you're in fashion or in architecture or in graphics, the ideas, the stories, the references are massive. And to use those as a source of inspiration, we've seen choreographers take the classic choreography and put it in a very abstract way. Same thing that can be done whether it's in fashion or architecture. And in architecture, I always say, let's go back to basics. If our ancestors managed to live in this harsh environment without electricity, without any means of modernity, and they managed to live and actually flourish during the pearl diving period. So what can I learn from the way they built their buildings? They were so sensitive to the environment around them. Smaller openings where the sun is hot, an opening where the breeze comes. So they were responsive to their environment. Now, if I take these elements and put it in the most contemporary building, your building will be long. It will be sustainable. It will blend into the environment that sits it.
You see, for someone like myself, obviously being born and bred in the UK, I wasn't very much aware of culture, faith, heritage, and until, like you said, you travel and you learn a lot. And I was like, wow, when you see the pyramids or you see the Blue Mosque in Istanbul, you think, wow, this is part of culture and heritage. But architecture is something that people will remember, like the World Cup, the stadium, or like the hotel. These are things that are play a huge significant role and contribution to the art scene. And someone like yourself has contributed to that culture in Qatar, So just asking you randomly, something that's not yours, what is your favorite piece of architecture in Qatar?
In Qatar,
that's a tricky one, right?
I think some of the older, early modern, like the oldie one, Amiri, some of these buildings that the older hospitals, ministries, even though they were built in the 50s and the 60s by architects that came from Scotland, I think they were more sensitive to our environment than the architects now that are copying and putting a lot of glass in a building and so on. But in this era, I think the Museum of Islamic Arts by IMP is a masterpiece. The Jean Nouvel, even our national museum, the Desert Rose, I think it opens the mind of what I was saying is to use things that belong to your environment and put it in the most contemporary way. I mean, when I saw his idea when it was announced, and I was, my God, how could he think like that? But he's a genius. And I think that's what it takes to sort of inspire a younger generation now. I think we, in our city, it's like an encyclopedia of what is the most contemporary architecture that belongs to our region. It translates our thinking. I mean, Sherib is a perfect example to where the openings are small, buildings are close to each other, yet it's the most modern district on a global level.
Absolutely. I mean, when you're in Masharib, you actually feel like you're in Europe. You know, that's how, if you were there and just took a picture, you would not know you're in the Middle East. So for those of you listening, you know, Doha is really an amazing hub of amazing architecture. And I think it's really important podcast. The reason I wanted to do the podcast was I'd get so many people asking me, what's Doha like, you know, and they for those of you who didn't visit, thought that it's just a desert in the middle of nowhere. People are, you know, tribal, and it's absolutely nothing like that. And this is why podcasts and interviews like this are very important, because it's connecting you with the world to tell the world what's happening here. And so tell me a little bit about your reset hotel, the Rosewood.
Well, the Rosewood, it sits on a very prime location, right at the edge of the sea in our modern part of the new town called Lusail. Again, that I like to be inspired by something related to our culture. There, the buildings has to be sort of responsive to the environment. In other words, you cannot end up with a glass box. You have to screen to reduce the glare. And I wanted to use the coral reef as a source of inspiration. And that's why that skin that looks very organic, even the way it's lit, as if the coral reef is breathing. I like to dive, I like the sea, and the sea is so important to our culture, important part of our history and our environment. So I use that as a source of inspiration to screen the glass on a large scale in a very organic manner, and it worked out quite well. That story, I think it was so important even to the operator. They took this idea and carried it forward, even in some of the artifacts they were using. It got some very important recognitions that I'm proud of.
Yeah, I mean, it's just recently opened, right? Just a few months ago. Yeah, so it's very new.
It's nice to work with operators from different parts of the world, because then you have to understand how they operate, how they function, yet put this in an architecture that belongs to wherever it is. And that's why I love doing hotels.
I think it's very good as well, because it brings diversity, different expertise into the country, you know, and Qatar's brilliant at that. So the other hotel, I think last year it was open, the one in Oman.
And Oman is in an area called Al Mawj, which means the waves. Again, that hotel was a St. Regis hotel, right on a couple of 100 meters of golden sand beach, prime location. And there, it's not a very high rise, yet we wanted to be inspired again by the waves itself. So the building started creating waves, which worked out very well even in terms of functions, because that gave me an opportunity to create a stretched balconies. You're sitting on the beach, might as well enjoy the scene. So whether it's an apartment or a hotel room, they have all the best views within that. And that was a lovely result that I'm so proud of. And the client is extremely happy with the end result.
And those of you who haven't seen it, that's the St. Regis in Muscat. Absolutely beautiful piece of architecture. You know, it's just a state of art. I've seen it. I've been fortunate enough to see it. And it is absolutely stunning, and it's huge.
It is.
How many rooms has it, guys?
It has 400 plus between rooms and apartments. But then we do also hotels more of ecotourism, like we did somewhere here, remote and a preserved area, My Habitat, and it's tinted structure.
And with Habitat.
Very minimalist. It's like a 6-star yet.
And where is that?
You can in Ras Brook and west of Qatar, very remote area. You have to go a little bit of off-road to reach there, but it's a very fancy place. But as luxurious as it is, you still can feel comfortable walking around there barefoot, because it's so so calm, so peaceful, and it had some wonderful success. And that's what I like about hotels in different look, whether it's a city hotel or a remote hotel. Now we're doing some ecotourism also in Oman, in the mountains. And these are on the drawing table as we speak.
Wow. So internationally, you've been given quite a lot of recognition now, haven't you?
Fortunately, yes, won several awards on our regional, whether it's the Arab Cities Award or Islamic Cities Award. I was nominated for the very important Aga Khan Award a few times on some of my projects. And the Thumama Stadium won me an award in France. And here, of course, my hometown got very honorable recognitions. The last one was last year, where I was honored by His Highness the Emir for the gold medal for the State of Qatar Appreciation Award. This is when your country is appreciating what you have accomplished for your nation during your career, and that's sort of a jewel on my crown if I have one.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely amazing how, you're representing not just your country, not just your profession, but you putting Qatar and architecture, especially someone, a Qatari Muslim architect throughout the world. I think it's very, very important because people don't see, how much Qatar has progressed and how much talent there is in this country. And I think achieving awards like that is, it's something to be extremely proud about and
I am
contribute.
so proud. And now with all these wonderful universities and the sort of great ground for creativity that's happening in Qatar, led by Her Excellency Sheikh Al Mayasa and encouraged by the state of Qatar, whether it's in VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, or other Qatar universities, the creativity has really brought up very successful people in the arts and fashion and graphics. So we see an emerging generation that are going to make an impact on the region level. I'm confident.
Absolutely. If you were given anywhere in the world and a budget and said, okay, Ibrahim, go and make what you've wanted to dream of, what would it be?
Where in the world?
Yeah, where if you were just as an architect said, right, okay, no restrictions, do what you want, what would you actually make?
I mean, I have sort of a dream, with the transition from, the oil period. There was a big transition, from the old neighborhoods, the courtyard houses, and then all of a sudden the oil came and there was a massive transition into sort of a new type of city where people left the courtyard houses and moved into what's called villas, all these boxes called villas. And the neighborhood is no more intact like it used to be because you used to know everybody living around you. And now you're living more in a metropolitan city. So I feel that when it comes to residential, we lost a lot of that.
You lost the community.
The community. Okay. And so I have made a sort of a concept how to bring back the courtyard houses and that community of the neighborhood into a modern context. So my dream is to recreate the old neighborhood, which I think most of the cities within the Islamic cities has lost. I think there is an opportunity to recreate that. And that's my sort of a dream. I have a concept, I'm developing it. I give talks about it, what we lost, what we can gain back.
I think it's absolutely, what you said is spot on. Because if you go back, like you said, into Islamic states and countries, it was all about making food, sending it to your neighborhood when it's Eid, the kids are going over. And now I agree with you because you're speaking to a lot of youngsters in Qatar. I think there's a lot more isolation and it's very much a mall culture. If you're going to go out, you go to a mall or you go somewhere to eat.
And that applies all the way from Morocco, all the way to Pakistan and everywhere in between, in my opinion, that the city planning did not put into consideration that harmony that was available in the courtyards. I mean, you still can see it maybe in older places when you visit the old Kasbahs in North Africa, for example, whether it's Morocco or Tunisia or Algeria and maybe other places. And I feel there is a wonderful opportunity
Yeah, well, I
back-
hope that dream of yours comes true. Just on a personal note, what's your house like? Is it very modern?
I have a modern house in the Pearl because it's in the context of a very modern area, very minimalist because it's on the sea. My house where I live permanently, it's again it has the qualities that we're talking about. My brothers and myself are living in one compound with my mom's house and us, the five brothers, and with all our kids playing. So we live in that, what I think our society lost, the neighborhood. We're all neighbors, and there is this community, sense of community. And that I love regardless of
So do you
style.
still all go to that family unit?
We live there.
Oh,
We still live there. So even though I have other places of houses, but that's where we all live, and that's where our kids feel more at home than any other place.
but all of you brothers have actually done really well, you know. And again, it comes back to what you shared with me earlier, that you came from an educated family, and you all had good schooling, good education. So
Alhamdulillah, that's
all of you, I mean, your family is quite well known here in Qatar, the Jaidah family. What do your other brothers do?
we have a banker, we have we're one way or another related to the business or engineering, entrepreneurs, created companies that are listed. We continue. Our family business goes back to 1890 here in
Wow.
Qatar. That's 1880 something, where our great grandfather started it. And I think it remained in the DNA of the generations that they want to create something. The beauty of it, all of us started our own
You
thing.
branched out.
We branched out, but created our own success.
Do you think your children will? Do you think your children will carry on the legacy?
Well, we hope so. We give them the best education, we guide them, and then it's, I guess, their destiny. But we try to do our best to guide them to do what they love, regardless of what they do. I think that's the secret of giving the best for, I think, the next generation. Make sure they do what they love rather than what you love.
Very important.
They ask me, is any of your children as an architect? I say no. They all love design, appreciate design, but whatever they do, I encourage them, do what you like, because there is nothing like it as you grow, waking up in the morning and going to do something that you enjoy doing.
And do you also think, you were saying that you still live together on a compound. Do you think unity plays a huge role in success and encouragement? Like you said, you all live together, because you don't see that at all now. You find that children grow up and they all go away and stuff, especially in the Western world.
In the Western world, it's disappeared. Within our world, it's still relatively there, because the community is important. Even they don't live within one compound, but the attachment is still there. But for a generation to grow, I think, with each other, I think it gives them a lot of personality, as much as they are diverse and different. Every kid is different, but it builds a good personality, in my opinion, and confidence, and that's important to face the world as you grow.
And those are really good words of wisdom. So coming on to your two books here, we have two of your books here. Tell us a little bit about these two books that you've contributed to.
This is my first book and my last book. Well, the last so far. I hope to do much more, and there are two in between. But these two are very important, because I lived for a long time in the West and studied there. There was no reference whatsoever on our vernacular. There's no documentation.
Wow.
So what I missed, I wanted to give back to the next generation. So my first book was The History of Qatari Architecture, and that addresses the pre-oil period, all the mud houses, the masjids, the mosques, the forts, and this is where I documented this, and that's finally we have a reference. And that book has done so well. I have friends that bought it in New York, I've seen it in Venice, everywhere. More than 10,000 of these have been distributed around the world. The other book is addresses the early modern. So that is from the beginning of the oil, 50s, where the income started coming, and the transition, the first schools, the first banks that were built. And I called it Discovering Arabian Deco, because it was so interesting. As I was documenting the architecture, this this is 30 years of research that I put into this book. I realized that there was deco style within this 60s period, and I called it Arabian deco because it's deco yet with palm trees with motifs that belong to the region.
Yeah.
And that got so much interest, even of the deco society in New York were interested in this book and in this discovery of what's so-called Arabian deco.
And like Art Nouveau and other things, it had no period or no name.
The
And I
deco
think-
came before the Nouveau,
Yeah.
but the Art Deco, I think it was a golden era that affected fashion, music, of course, architecture. It was the era of luxury, the 30s, the 40s.
Yeah. So who's your biggest inspiration in architecture?
I've been inspired by different people at different era. There wouldn't be one person. I like architecture, good architecture, the visionary architects. Living in the States for 8 years, I was inspired a lot by whether it's Frank Lloyd Wright, the way he designed from a building to a chair to a table to everything. I like the neoclassical era. All the different names of architects, everybody has made an impact in my opinion, but I wouldn't name one architect.
So there's a few.
There are
I mean-
few, but my best source of inspiration is my mom.
Oh,
She
this
challenges
is amazing.
me, and I share with her some of my ideas, and she gives me good criticism.
That's amazing. I mean, they always say, don't they? Education starts at home.
Indeed.
And I think with the love and passion the parent says it means a lot. I remember going to the Glasgow School of Art and being inspired by Charles René Mackintosh and the ladder-back chair. And I was just fascinated because that was my first introduction to...
Mackintosh played a big role in the deco movement.
So that was my first sort of introduction to architecture. So even though I'm not an architect, but I do appreciate and value architecture, especially in Doha. The way I've seen it in front of my own eyes, like you mentioned, Lusail, Masharib, and a lot of the architecture, I had no idea because I knew you as a person, but I did actually put the face to the architecture, and you played such a magnificent role. So for those of you listening to SheTalk, this is Ibrahim Jaidah, and you must look at some of the phenomenal architecture contributions he's made, not just nationally here in Qatar, but to the world. And through his books, I mean, he's left historical documentation for future generations to come about the history. And it is people like that contribute, and it is people like that who show that culture, your culture, your faith, and your backgrounds can contribute a lot to who you become and what you want to become. And for those of you who are young, follow your passion. If that's something you want to do, you can do it, but you've got to work hard. It doesn't come to you on a plate. And is there anything else you want to add or tell me, something that we don't know about you?
Well, I guess
Other than architecture, what else do you do?
I love the sea.
You love the sea.
Yes, I love spending time in the sea, in my boat. That's the ultimate sort of switching off and getting inspired, looking at the sky. Traveling, of course, is a big passion for me since I was a child. And like I said earlier, looking at different cultures, appreciating different cultures make you love your own culture also more. The first time I went as a child to see the Notre Dame, for example, and you see this magnificent scale of architecture and detail, that makes an impact on you wherever you're going. And so on, with traveling and seeing different buildings, it does make an impact. And I think whether you're an artist or an architect, the more you see, the more cultures you integrate with, the more people you understand, it just makes you a better person.
Yeah. And knowledge is important. And I think in the times that you grew up and stuff, things were quite maybe limited. And I think nowadays youngsters have so much opportunity. You just put it in Google and you find out anything. I think knowledge, like you said, the travel, the buildings, this was all knowledge. Just on a final note now, is what do you think of IA, and how people are just designing and using AI to do things?
AI is a wonderful tool to explore things. So it will give you ideas. But now they say, is AI going to take your job? And the answer, the guy who knows how to use AI will take your job, not the AI itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then how can I use it as a strong tool? Now it will give me ideas, even if I want to design a building, if I want to change it from stone to glass, it will do all of that. But the difference is going to be if I have experienced the space. So for example, it can do for me a courtyard school or a courtyard building. But if I have never experienced and visited a courtyard,
You can't feel it.
you can't.
No.
So by traveling, by looking, by visiting, you'll make better choices because you know what the difference that it makes rather than just an image. And this is, I think, will be the difference between somebody who will really use that as a tool, as a creative, successful tool, rather than just copying and pasting and selling pictures.
Yeah. Also, with your success as well, alhamdulillah, there's a lot of success and you're being very, very humble about it. How do you balance life? One of the questions always comes is that, some people think you have to be a workaholic, but obviously you got family life. And how do you balance life? What's your words of wisdom?
I make sure I balance it. Family is important and friends. These are your biggest strength. When you are tired, when you are weak, or when you are scared, this is your sort of heaven. So I'm fortunate. I have friends that we grew up together and they're always there. I make sure we spend at least a day or two of the week together. And this is when you release, people you grow up with, you can get away with anything.
Yeah.
You're not worried to be judged or anything. And of course, your family. And again, fortunately, because we live together, our kids grew up together. And I think this is it's the biggest asset that you have. So work is important, but life is more important, at least. And sharing the success, whatever it is, with your people that are around you is very important. I think you get more blessed by sharing that success with people.
So you can't have a nice balance.
You certainly. I think a nice balance will make you more successful rather than a machine.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for your time. It's been such an honor to get to know you and share with the world and for all the listeners who will be listening to this.
Thank you, Shahida. Thank you so much.
Is there anything you want to say, any words of wisdom out there to people?
Thank you so much. Wish you the best. I'm glad that I'm the first to start well.
Yeah, that first podcast guest.
And I'm delighted to be with you. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. And so you're listening to SheTalk. And thank you so much, everyone. Signing out.